Record 41, Side 1. Lesson number 41, the 41st lesson, Practical section. Social services in the United Kingdom. The term welfare state is common enough today, and the UK is one of the most advanced countries in the world with regard to the social services it offers to every class of its citizens. The welfare state is something of a utopia in that it eliminates almost completely the worry that may follow in the train of an illness, whether serious or not. There was a time when to be ill was tantamount to hunger and want and, perhaps, crushing debts in order to meet the doctor's bills. About 100 years ago, the Industrial Revolution had, for half a century and more, been changing the economic scene, turning the traditional agricultural worker into something of a robo in the factories and pits. The first steps were taken to improve the conditions of the worker. Disraeli declared that in order to be certain of the welfare of the state, the welfare of its integral parts must be considered. Improvement of the economic and social conditions of the workers was the first thing. People were working tremendously long hours every day in the factories, which were, to say the least, squalid, and children were still employed at an age which today would cause an outburst of indignation sufficient to unseat a government. Workers' houses were little better. Huddled together in inadequate quarters, without the minimum of comfort by present-day standards, they lived their miserable lives and passed on, leaving their place to their son. The first steps towards the modern concept of the welfare state were taken with the passing of the Factory Acts, which, among other things, specified certain minimum standards to be observed by the employer, and improved the workers' conditions, as well as eliminating very young children altogether from the factories. The Public Health Acts, Housing Acts, and the Workmen's Compensation Act were all passed to meet the new conditions, not only of the worker, but of the country itself. The Industrial Revolution was the changeover of a country, a whole nation, from one type of economy to another. In 1870, another great step forward was taken with the passing of the Education Act. This was the first time that public authorities had provided education. Prior to that date, schools, apart from the great public schools, which were beyond the means of all but the rich, had been organized by the church in order to give some instruction to the poorer classes. However, there was no obligation to go, and very often there was heated discussion as to their use, since many contended they taught too much religion. That is probably untrue, but with the limited funds at their disposal, the education offered could not be but of the most elementary kind. Today, schools prepare pupils of all social levels for all walks of life, irrespective of their origin, religion, or politics, from the age of 5. Compulsory education begins then, though many children attend kindergarten before that age. until they leave the university at the age of from 23 to 25 or 26 years. Not everyone, of course, may go to university, but no one today need be without a university education simply for lack of means. A student of reasonable intelligence will receive assistance where necessary in order to obviate hardship in the family while he or she is studying. The National Health Service of today, in the field of medical treatment of all kinds, the supply of medicines, care of the old, the disabled, and widows and orphans, is the result of gradual advances made over the past 100 years. No person need fear, from a financial point of view at any rate, the consequences of serious illness. Each week, each month in the case of the salaried worker, the wage earner and his employer contribute the sum of a few shillings towards the National Health Service. This is compulsory, even when, as occasionally happens, some people prefer to have a private doctor rather than another. This weekly or monthly payment ensures medical treatment for the worker and his or her dependents, assistance if the wage earner falls ill, maternity benefits, and so on. Some abuse was clearly evident in the first few years after the passing of the Act. So today there are small fees for certain treatments. A visit to the dentist is no longer completely free, except for certain categories, like expectant mothers and children at school. Medicines prescribed by a doctor will be supplied by any chemist on payment of a small fee fixed by the state. Hospital treatment is completely free, but a patient may be required, out of the payment he receives from the state by way of sickness benefit, to contribute towards his food while in hospital. The welfare state is here to stay, and social services will be improved in the future as they have been in the past.
Side 2, Grammatical section. The definite article, second part. Here are some further points on the use of this important little word in the English language. 1. When the terms north, south, east and west, etc. are used as nouns, they take the article if preceded by a preposition. The expedition moved off towards the north. To the south, we could see the snow-capped peaks. But Hadrian's Wall runs from east to west. Otherwise, the article may be used or omitted as desired. The same rule applies to right and left. In Great Britain, one must look first to the right, then to the left, before crossing the street, because the right of the road is the left. 2. The article is almost invariably found with certain words: cinema, theatre, country, and certain other words such as school, bed, the rooms in the house, prison, market, and so on. We go to the cinema every week. My friends have a house in the country. The theatre is one of my favorite pleasures. Bring me the paper, it's in the kitchen. I haven't been in the bedroom since I got up this morning. If you go along Main Street, past the prison, you will come to the market. We speak of the house when we mean home, the bed, the kitchen, etc., when we know that the listener is well aware of the place indicated. However, when we speak not so much of the place as its use, we do not use the article. So we say, "Today I visited my friend who had an accident last week and is in hospital." Going to school in winter is not a very enjoyable experience. That man has been in prison more than once. Musical instruments usually take the definite article before them. He plays the piano very well. That young lady has studied music for years and can play the piano, the saxophone, and trumpet. The definite article is not used before the names of meals unless the meal is a social or official gathering. The majority of us have lunch about 1 o'clock. People don't have breakfast in all countries, but it is almost the most important meal of the day in some. But the dinner was a great success, and the guests of honor were delighted. I took my fiancée to the luncheon given by the Book Society. The indefinite article. As you know, the indefinite article is used only in the singular, with countable nouns, and is "a" before consonants and words beginning with the sound U, university, union, unique, and the sound W even when formed by a vowel, a one-eyed man. All other singular countables take "un." The indefinite article is used (a) when a thing unknown to the listener or reader is mentioned for the first time in a sentence or discourse. A man was standing outside the office when I arrived this afternoon. There's a book on the kitchen table. Whose is it? B. With a singular countable noun when it means no particular, any. In this case, it is usually generic in meaning. A motor car is a useful thing to possess. I like having a dog about the house. It is also used when followed by a relative clause indicating type or kind. He is a man who knows his job. This is a story which I find very hard to believe. C. Before a person's name when the person is quite unknown to the speaker. I received a call from a Mr. Jones, but I asked him to write since I couldn't contract business on the telephone. A Miss Evans came to see you. She said you would know what it was about. It is occasionally used to imply that the person has qualities which are known to have belonged to another, famous or historical personage. He is a regular Don Juan. The crowd thought he was a real Napoleon in his captaining of the team to victory. D. Before the names of meals when they are social or public functions. A dinner was given in the town hall in honor of the visiting delegates to the conference. The company offers a lunch to its staff every year at Christmas and gives presents to everyone. There was a dinner at the Carlton to celebrate the return of the successful expedition. The indefinite article is not used, A, before nouns that are not countable but measurable. Milk is good for you. Electricity and fire are both wonderful servants, but bad masters of man. If we wish to specify a certain quantity, we must use a term of measurement and say a pint of milk, a piece of paper, a flash of lightning, a ton of coal. B. Other words having no plural form, and which are repeated here to refresh your memory, are advice, furniture, information, progress, etc.